Скажіть, будь ласка, хтось чув, знав про Девіда до цього мітапа? Ну, чесно, ніхто, да? А хто чув термін DApp – Decentralized Application? А це людина, яка винайшла цей термін. Ну, щоб ви розуміли, хто це. В 2013 році. Це людина, який адвокат децентралізації, тобто децентралізації Максі. І людина, яка є найвпливовішою, мабуть, зараз у Web3 децентралізованому штучному інтелекті.
Very cool. Well, thank you for hosting me, Anton, and thanks for the kind introduction. Yeah, I am a decentralization maximalist and freedom maximalist. And yeah, it's cool to see how much the industry has adopted the idea of decentralized applications and how far we've come since those early days of 2013. But Anton asked me to talk a little bit today about decentralized AI. And the thing that's gotten me really inspired is I think AI gives us the interface for reaching 1 billion people with crypto, right? Today, there are a few hundred million people using crypto globally. And I think the primary limitation is ease of use, right? A simpler interface for people to use crypto. Today, you have to be fairly technically savvy, right? And when I look at the chat interface that AI provides, I see an easy way for people to use crypto. It really reminds me of 1998. If you remember the internet before Google, it was not easy to use, right? It's like crypto today. It was directories and IP addresses. It wasn't intuitive, right? And so I think with AI, we can have that Google moment again, where we make the access to the technology as simple as the user stating what they want to do in natural human language, right? So the user says, I want to stake my ETH. The AI understands the request, can match the intent with a smart contract, and set up the transaction in MetaMask. And then the user just has to review and press the button to approve the transaction on their own wallet, right? That's, I think, the key user interface transition we need to have so that non-technical people can access the technology and we can move into billions of people in the next few years using crypto, not just hundreds of millions. And so, that's sort of what has inspired me to focus so much of my time on building decentralized AI. Now, that's what, AI offers to the crypto community. On the other side, the benefit for the AI community is all of the compute that crypto can bring, right? All of the AI projects are hungry for inference, for AI tokens, for the GPUs to train their models and to provide inference for prompts, right? And as my friend Casey pointed out, if you look at the number of GPUs the Ethereum community had before it switched away from proof of work, there were 50 times as much compute on Ethereum as was used to train ChatGPT-4, right? So the global community of people that can offer compute is much larger than Microsoft or Google or anybody building models today. So I think inevitably the largest AI models will be trained in this distributed way, right? And so there are a bunch of great protocols working on that, whether it's Akash or BitTensor or EdgeLlama or Ritual. There are many decentralized compute models that are now providing crypto incentives for people to improve the AI models. I know the folks at Noose Hermes very well, and Noose Research built some of the best fine-tuned models, and now they're adopting, BitTensor and incentives from crypto to improve their base models. So that's what I think the crypto community can offer AI. The other perspective to understand is there's a lot of regulation coming into AI, right? That wasn't there before. And this very much reminds me of like 2013, 2014 in the crypto industry, right? Where the regulations started coming in and they started restricting what people could do with crypto. And so many of the technologies we've built in Web3 the last 15 years are now going to be relevant to the AI companies, right? So if the US becomes very restrictive, they're introducing rules about who can train models. You have to register with the government. You have to get a license. You have to have a safety committee. All these things are going to introduce barriers for centralized startups to build AI. And so what Web3 can offer is training a model anywhere, doing the compute anywhere, and basically going to friendly jurisdictions, whether that's Ukraine or the UK, anybody that opens up and embraces AI technology, all of a sudden builders in a decentralized system will be able to access that benefit. Just like Bitcoin didn't care where the hash rate was, right? For most of the history of Bitcoin, the hash rate was outside the United States primarily. When China became unfriendly to Bitcoin miners, they just moved somewhere else, right? So we need a decentralized protocol that can do this decentralized AI that isn't country specific, that isn't company specific, that is an open, neutral system. Just like Ethereum built for smart contracts, now we need that for smart agents, for decentralized AI. And so that's sort of the last thing I'll talk about is, when the white paper first came out for Morpheus, it was written by some anonymous developers last September. It was sort of very inspiring, right, to solve this problem, not just to give people open source AI models, but to create a network where there was incentives for coders, incentives for capital, incentives for compute, incentives for end application builders, right? And that really reminds me of the early days of Ethereum. Yes, they had a token sale. Yes, they rewarded capital, and they also rewarded miners, but people forget a lot of the rewards went to developers, right? Everybody that provided code to Ethereum before their Genesis block in 2015 received ETH, right? And I think that's the key to building a broad community is to rewarding developers, not just capital and compute. And so that's one of the things that really attracted me about Morpheus. I was at a conference last September and I was telling Eric Voorhees about the invention of Morpheus, and he got very excited about contributing to the community, created the website mor.org. And so many of the early crypto people have come together to say this is the next thing that we all need to build is decentralized AI. And that project and that rally point has really become Morpheus. So a lot of you have probably seen the fair launch that went live. It's been just incredible to see the support from the community, to have $400 million of staked ETH be provided with no company, with no foundation, with no treasury, just directly into the protocol to reward everybody that's building the code, providing the compute, and helping create the platform. So I think that model, that idea of building a fair launch is really compelling and something we need to get back to as a community and as an industry, and away from these centralized points of failure like companies or foundations. So anyway, I'll stop there, but great to see you all today. Happy to take any questions. And Anton, I want to thank you for hosting this kickoff event for the community.
Thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you. I have a question: how the decentralized AI could be limited not to make some damage to the humanity?
That's a great question. I think the key is to align AI to the individual, right? So I don't think of AI as something separate from me. I think of it as an extension of me, right? In the Morpheus context, it's all open source. It's connected to my data. It's taking my tasks and my goals. And ultimately, it will only do what I sign as a transaction, right? So the user expresses a preference, the AI offers an action, and the user authorizes the final action. I think that's the correct thing. Not for a big company to own AI, not for a big government to own AI. I want the individual to own AI, right? If I think back to the history of the computer, they used to all be centralized, right? You would have a terminal and a main computer, but over time, everyone wanted a personal computer, right? Phones were the same way, right? It started with an operator and they would connect you, but eventually people wanted a personal phone. So for all of those reasons, I think you'll want a personal AI that is connected to your data and approved by your wallet. And that's the best way to avoid bad outcomes. Like AI is coming. The only question is who will it be aligned to? Will it be aligned to a few big companies or will it be open source and available to everyone? That's the only real question. So I don't see too many bad use cases if the individuals have control of their own AI. Just like they should have control of their own Web3 wallet, they should have control of their own data. I think that's the key.
Thank you. Next.
Yeah, thanks for your speech. I would like to ask a question about the multi-agents. So I was talking with my friends that are working in the Google, and Google for now are building this multi-agent system where you won't have any apps on your phone. You will just have a chat where you can ask about like any request, and the multi-agent will create an agent that will do the task for you. So from your point of view, can decentralized AI be the best situation here to onboard the users, or the Google can do better? What is your thoughts on that point?
Well, I think they have the right idea, which is you can think of the Morpheus smart agent as a coordinator or as a delegator agent, right? What it's really doing is interpreting the intent of what the user wants to do, and then it should connect it to a specialized smart agent that does that task. So if I ask to, stake my ETH, it connects me to an agent specialized in setting up Lido transactions, right? So what you want is a marketplace, right? Morpheus is not building any agents. It's just a platform for people to deploy their smart agents in this platform. Just like Ethereum doesn't build any smart contracts, right? It gave people consensus, execution, wallets, and the platform to deploy their smart contracts. The same thing is true for Morpheus. So yes, there are already people proposing tons of interesting agents to deploy on Morpheus. And I think the low-hanging fruit is the Web3 use cases that are already proven, right? People are going to create, like you're saying, a chat wrapper, an AI interface for Uniswap and Lido and Arweave and Compound, and every popular dApp and smart contract is likely to get connected into smart agents so that people can just say what they want to do. They don't need to know about the smart contracts. They don't have to understand how they work. They just need their smart agent to connect them to the right specialized smart agent. So if you're interested in this subject, I wrote a paper last year about smart contract rank and this idea of having an algorithm that ranks the smart contract and creates that embedding that then gets added to the AI so that the AI has the context, right? Because the base models are not experts, right? They can tell you general things, but you have to add prompt and other information into an embedding in order for people to really use a specialized smart agent. So, there's a proposal in the Morpheus community where people will be able to register their agent on chain, describe what it does. It'll get added to the Morpheus marketplace, and then the agents will be aware and able to connect to those other specialized agents. So yes, I think that's the approach.
Got it. Thank you. And one more question on that side as well. So probably you know about the Holo network and Holochain, which proposes the idea that every individual should have their own blockchain and then connects from it to the other individuals and like operate through that side. So do you think it's like a working idea in terms of like individuals have their own AI and have their own blockchain, or we will have only AI for ourselves and the blockchain will be like unique and you will need to go to the Ethereum or to any layer 2 and then work from there? Or it is better to like work from your own blockchain as well?
Well, I think the key is for the individual to be able to take their wallet and their context and all their agents that they're connected to any device. And so Morpheus is chain agnostic, right? It started on Ethereum, but there's proposals to extend it to Solana, Cosmos, all the EVM chains, right? So, Morpheus itself is not a layer 1, it's not a layer 2. It's a series of smart contracts. It's, the local install, it's the connections to the large language models. There are actually about 10 different pieces of the Morpheus reference implementation. And so I think what will happen is they'll connect in the next layer 1, the next layer 2, the next holochain, the other infrastructure that they want to use. And the user will be able to persistently take their context across devices. So if I can store all of my prompts and all of my connections in IPFS and Filecoin, then anywhere I go, I can take that context into a different blockchain, into a different wallet, into a different device.
Got it. Thanks. Any other questions?
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm not sure from where you are looking at me, maybe from here, or I don't know, where is the camera? So you answered that the AI should be tied to a personal, to a person. Yeah, so in this case, there should be some responsibility and we can avoid some bad happening with AI. But crypto is about the privacy, right? So everyone in crypto wants to be to stay private, right? And everything which is on the permissionless blockchain is forever in this blockchain, right? And if a person wants to delete something, it is impossible. So how do you think it can be resolved? So how can we tie AI to a person, but preserve maybe some level of privacy of that person? And this is actually the first question, and very interesting, the second one. I want to say that a quick note, I'm a lawyer and I'm thinking in the terms of relations between user, platform, AI provider, and actually this is very interesting that right now one of my clients asked how to prevent the platform being responsible for actions of third parties AI. I think this is very much the same as your project do. So how do you believe it's possible to connect a user with an AI, avoiding the responsibility for their direct interaction in this case? Thank you very much.
Those are great questions. So let me start with privacy. When I say connected to a user, this is in a Web3 context. And so what I really mean is connected to a user's wallet, right? And of course, they have a synonymous address, not always a real name, representing them in that public key, right? And so, yes, there's ultimately an individual, but it's not KYC, it's not government identity, it's a Web3 wallet that ultimately controls that smart agent. There's a lot of work being done on privacy when it comes to zero knowledge proof, but also fully homomorphic encryption, known as FHE. And my expectation is that a lot of these large language models will support zero knowledge proof or FHE later this year. People are already experimenting with how you can hand the prompt to the model, encrypted, it runs the calculations and hands back the result, and only the user can decrypt it, right? That's the FHE approach, right? So already having an open source model on your own computer is very private, right? You're not calling to anyone else. If you download a full Morpheus node, you have the large language model on your device. It's not calling an API. It doesn't even need an internet connection once you've downloaded the model. So that's perfect privacy. But the idea for the network is when you don't have enough compute to do the task you want, maybe you want to generate an image or generate a video, somebody else has a GPU, you can connect to that. And now you're not exposing any information to the network, right? There's nothing published on chain except for there is a connection between this compute provider and this user. And that session gets just a cryptographic proof of how long that session was, and the compute provider can collect the reward. But it doesn't reveal any information about the prompt. None of that is on chain, right? So that's already much better than literally handing all of your information to Microsoft or Google, right? You're exposed effectively only to one compute provider, who's just doing a temporary session and just wants to collect the reward. But my expectation is that the privacy tools will continue to improve. So you already have the option to do it locally. You can download that right now. Morpheus is live. Like go to mor.org and you can download the software on your own computer. and it defaults to, I think, Llama 2 or Mixtral as an open source model. So, that's pretty private compared to what people are doing today, which is just handing all of their information away to these big companies. I think you asked a second question around,
About the
effectively
the responsibility of the platform for the question was about the responsibility of the platform for users' interaction with the AI.
So the reason that the internet can exist is that there's a separation between the platform and the user, right? In the United States, this is called Section 230, right, which is the safe harbor. So, Google can offer Gmail. They're not responsible for every email people send on Gmail, right? They can host YouTube. They're not responsible for every video somebody posts to YouTube, right? And so the big question is, are these safe harbor provisions applied to AI, right? And can I release a model? It's just a general tool, and I have no control over if somebody writes something mean or, disrespectful or untruthful, any more than, having a copy of Microsoft Word. You could type something, untruthful. You could type something, mean or disrespectful or hateful to people, right? So there has to be this separation between protocols and users. And that's sort of why Bitcoin was able to exist, right? The government shut down every predecessor to Bitcoin because it was a company, right? And the genius of Satoshi was to separate them and say, there is no company, it's just a protocol. Anybody can use it. Each person is responsible in their own country, under their own legal system, to apply the rules of their jurisdiction. But the Bitcoin doesn't know the state exists, right? Morpheus doesn't know the state exists. It's just this open protocol. So I think different countries will treat it differently. Ultimately, the countries that are most friendly to AI will get most of these developers and innovation and the benefit. But, it's hard to say how the laws will come out. So far, it looks like the US will be very restrictive. China's very restrictive. India has backed off on some of their restrictions. But so far, only the UK has said clearly they will not regulate base models. So is that the new Switzerland for AI? We'll find out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Someone else? Okay, then I have quick one. I've been asked before the event started. Did the anonymous developers who sent the paper participated in Morpheus like Satoshi did in the Bitcoin early days?
It's a good question. So the history is there was already a community talking about this concept of smart agents, right? And I had written the paper on smart agents earlier in 2023. And so people were already figuring out how to build open source models that they could run locally, right? And the Morpheus authors sent the paper to myself and other members of this smart agent community and said, hey, this is great, but you really need a network, right? And here's our proposal for a network, right? And they proposed the token economics, they proposed the fair launch, they proposed using the yield mechanism. A lot of the major pieces of what would become Morpheus were in their original white paper. And, they put in their letter that they donated it to public domain. Here you go, smart agent community. And that's the last people heard from them. So they created the idea, they released the concept, they donated it to the public domain. But they didn't provide code, they didn't show up later and participate in a lot of the discussions. They sort of created this document and then sent it to the community. And I think it would have been interesting, but I think the reaction was so powerful because so shortly after, right, they sent the paper September 2nd. It was only the next month when the US administration passed the executive order and said they were going to limit parameters, they were going to limit compute, they were going to start KYC, they were going to, potentially ban open source models in the US, which we'll find out in July if the Commerce Department really does that. It looks like they will. that reminded so many people in the crypto community of 1991, right? The US proposed a ban on encryption in 1991, right? This is often called the crypto wars of the 1990s, right? Famously, Phil Zimmerman released PGP, pretty good privacy, as an encryption standard in response. He open sourced that in response to this government proposal to ban encryption. So many people in the community had a strong reaction and said, no. We have to keep AI open source. It has to be permissionless. It should be decentralized. And there's no compromise. Like, we're building this, and we're building this right now, right? And so I think that's part of why, the proposal had just come out, and people said, there's the solution, right? Let's go do that and do it Bitcoin style. No company, no foundation, no treasury. Anybody can participate, right? And so far, 164 coders have participated. So far, 4,600 capital providers have participated. So it's been really cool to see the community kind of come together. And so, I think people give me or Eric or other, people that speak about it too much credit. Like, Eric put up the website and he wrote a good paper with the Yellowstone paper. I've contributed to the architecture, but there are a huge number of people building this. Different people built the smart contracts, different people did the audits, different people built the installs. There are like 10 major pieces of software all coming together to build the Morpheus platform. And I think that's really cool. It reminds me a lot of those 2012, 2013 days.
Extremely appreciate your time, and thank you for your incredible speech and your answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.